Okay, let's go through this because I think that it was only a matter of time before this happened. Now, I was skeptical about diving into Helldivers 2. Some of my friends was like, man, you need to hop on, we'll show you the ropes. You haven't played with the right people. I'm like, all right, I'll get on. Let me see what it's about. And I was hesitant. And I was also hesitant from the moment I made this video talking about how Helldivers is too repetitive for me. And every now and then I get a comment reinforcing that idea. A lot of people feel the same way that I do. Now, there are certain reasons why this is the case. Helldivers Media Twitter/X actually tweeted this themselves. They said, Helldivers is losing players at an alarming rate. Now, there are 3 reasons for this. 1, because of all that BS that happened with the other countries not having access to the PSN network. Then you have the latest stratagem that was released, which was pretty underwhelming, along with the nerfs that came with it. And finally, just overall burnout. So let's read this article that they're talking about so we can break it down and really dive into the meat of this, because it's a lot of factors all at once. I'll have the article linked in the description if you want to go check it out for yourself. But here's what they say. Helldivers is the smash hit release of 2024, with it selling over 12 million copies in its first 3 months. That's insane. First of all, everybody's talking about how AAA games are losing their sauce, and there are a lot of reasons why that is. The Act Man made a beautiful video that was funny as heck talking about why indie games are on the rise and have been leading the industry over the past months. And it has a lot to do with corporate greed and just a lot of stuff where the substance of gaming is pretty much going away, but the indie developing community brings it back because we're not restricted by any of these political handcuffs. The result of this being a lot of creativity that normally games wouldn't have because they're restricted by so many different factors. So when Helldivers 2 came out, a lot of people were intrigued by the idea of what you can do, the concept, but then they started to get a little bit greedy because they started to think like corporate more so. They're hired by Sony, so they have to do what they say, right? But like I said, they sold over 12 million copies in its first 3 months and building a highly engaged community. Unfortunately, a few bad decisions by both the developers, Arrowhead Game Studios, and its publisher, Sony, has put the game in a downward spiral as players are turning away and moving on to other titles. According to SteamDB, which is a statistics page for Steam that tells you about everything that is going on, how many concurrent players there are, how many have left the game, how many are still playing. Statistics page. Helldivers is at its lowest when it comes to player count. Just a few weeks ago, the game was averaging over 150,000 concurrent players on Steam alone, not to mention YouTube and all the other platforms, and it's been approximately 10 days since it reached over 100,000. There are many reasons for this though, and it is possible that Arrowhead Game Studios could turn it around. And with the recent PSN controversy, which I made a video about as well, eroded a lot of goodwill with the community. A situation that still hasn't been resolved despite Sony's backtracking it on its plans just 2 days later. Yeah, they backtracked because they saw so much backlash from the community and all those countries who didn't have access after Sony decided to make this decision to implement this mandatory sign-in. But currently, 180 countries have been restricted from the game, which will certainly play a part in the lower player count. That's what I said. It's not only about burnout. It's not only about players just wanting to play something else. It's not only about the stratagems. It's about the simple numbers of people aren't able to play the game really, or they don't want to in these countries. Then they moved on to the stratagems where they say there hasn't been much to work towards unlocking in some time now. When they say work towards, that means something that they actually want to grind for and want to use. The latest stratagem that players can unlock is the exosuit mech at level 25. But with the level cap now at 150, it seems that it doesn't take long for players to run out of items to grind for. The latest Polar Patriots Warbound wasn't a hit with players either, with many of the weapons falling flat and not becoming part of the meta, giving players less incentive to work towards unlocking them. Speaking of weapons, Arrowhead Game Studios focus on nerfing weapons, and overbalancing has turned players off as many of the weapons are no longer enjoyable to use. The developers have stated that they'll be improving balancing after going too far with nerfing, but it could be too little too late at this point. Now, from what I've seen, from what I've played with Helldivers, the game is repetitive, and you need strong weapons and weapons that are not mediocre in order to overcome the sort of redundancy when it comes to combat. Almost every single map is reskinned, whether it be snow or desert, whatever the terrain is. The gameplay loop is pretty much the same, so they need strong and overtuned and crazy weapons that can disrupt that redundancy. And if Arrowhead are nerfing weapons, then that makes no sense in this realm of gaming. So I get it. Now they said they're trying to backtrack and make weapons worth grinding for, or make them as strong as the meta weapons that are here now. But this can only last for so long. And finally, the lower player count could be the result of natural burnout. With Helldivers 2 being out for 3 months, many players were jumping into the game on a daily basis and now may simply need a change of pace and to play something new for a while. Once the game sees new content added, it will likely attract some of the community back, such as the arrival of the Illuminate. And this is something that Helldivers media said. They said, if you're still playing Helldivers 2, then the latest major order is one that we are sure to win, with players tasked with killing 3.1 billion automations in terminates. To ensure victory against the enemy, we highly recommend checking out our Helldivers 2 best weapon guide and best armor guide, so you can wipe out hundreds of enemies each mission to continue to bring democracy to the galaxy as the galactic war rages on. Now, they said that it can be natural burnout, and I get it, but how do you disrupt this burnout? There are certain ways you can do that in games. Games have been out for too long for you not to know. I stressed this before in my other video when I talked about why Helldivers was too boring for me. And that was because PvP is one of the things that disrupt the boredom in games, because every single match is going to be different. It doesn't matter what PvE game you play. These NPCs are bots. They're coded a certain way to have a certain behavior, wherein they attack a certain way, they move a certain way. You can memorize their behaviors, ultimately leading into boredom. Because you're like, okay, they spawn from here. This enemy attacks this way. He's fast, he's slow. Use this weapon to kill him, over and over again. Rinse and repeat. And this is just naturally going to tell the brain that it's not engaging enough for you to retain that dopamine that other things give you, like PvP. Some people were commenting on my video saying that, yo, PvP shouldn't be added to this game. This is a PvE game, like horde mode type deal. Okay, I get it. But you got Arrowhead, the developers of this game, allowing other players who you randomly invite to your game to kill you at the extraction. Why even have friendly fire on, or the ability to have friendly fire, if you're not going to have PvP? I'm telling you, if you add PvP to games and make it actually a system, you don't have to make it all in one mode. Matter of fact, take friendly fire off in the PvE modes and make your own PvP mode that allows for this chaos. It'll be crazy. You got Left 4 Dead that came out a long time ago, the PvP mode in that. Players actually use the zombies. You got players who use the zombies and you have players who use the humans. Gears of War use the locusts, and then there are humans. So you can either be one or the other. There's a lot of creativity that can go into adding a PvP to Helldivers, but that's up to Arrowhead developers. That's not my decision. I just wanted to chime in and give you an update on why the player base is leaving, and these 3 factors are why. Let me know what you think about this down below in the comment section. Are you still playing Helldivers? Have you played it? What do you think about what I said? Like the video if you like this conversation, and subscribe to my channel if you're new here. I'll see you in the next one. Be right out.